1492, the famous year that Columbus discovered America and changed the world forever. 400 years later, a man named Daniel Burnham would do the same thing. A World's Fair was going to take place in 1893, and the world was excited. People would travel across the globe to visit these phenomenal sites, and even more people traveled for the opportunity to present artwork, music, their nationality, and even inventions. Decided by the Bureau of International Expositions, a World Fair would be held every 5 years, and Daniel Burnham knew that this fair was going to be his. In 1892, Burnham began plans to have Chicago host the World's Fair the following year, but that was much easier said than done. Obstacles were in every direction for Burnham, as other cities like St. Louis, New York, and even Washington, D.C. fought to host the fair. Burnham had one other problem: Alexander Eiffel. In the 1889 World's Fair, Eiffel had unveiled his newly finished Eiffel Tower, but Burnham wanted this fair to have something even greater. The time leading up to the fair would prove to be the most stressful time in Burnham's life, as things constantly went wrong. But every moment of stress he felt paid off as the world exchanged cultures, encountered one another, and explored in his White City. The fair provided foreigners with a thorough amount of Western culture, as iconic American foods were released at the fair: juicy fruit bubblegum, cream of wheat, and Aunt Jemima's maple syrup all were a part of the fair that year. But these patriotic delicacies were nothing compared to what was about to come. Burnham was going to plan to use the 4th of July to tell the world about how fond Americans were of their home. He planned a fireworks show that incorporated not only American culture, but Asian and European cultures as well. To start the show off, he arranged for a fleet of Viking ships to sail off into Lake Michigan to release thousands of Chinese lanterns into the sky. As lanterns rose, an aesthetic display of fireworks began to fire off continuously while the main event was being prepared. Just as the show seemed to end, a sudden flash burst through the sky to paint a flaming image of George Washington for the entire world to see. After that night, the world understood what it meant to be American, and the opposite was also true. The massive 27 million attendees brought their culture to the fair with them, and even though the fair was in Chicago, the entire world walked the streets of that paradise. When Columbus discovered the Americas, the world viewed them as new frontiers to explore. Burnham was already exploring his own frontier. Through days of planning, nights of anxiety, and moments of fear, Burnham had decided to use widespread electricity throughout the park, the first time ever electricity was used on the scale. At the opening ceremony, President Cleveland gave a speech that would seem inadequate for the wonder and awe that followed. After he finished his speech, Cleveland placed a big golden key into its keyhole, and buildings lit up with electricity. Fountains sprayed watery images, and images roared to life. With one great innovation came tremendous inventions as the fair became a hub of popular invention unveilings. A few remarkable inventions were the elevator, the automatic dishwasher, the spray paint, and even the squash penny. One day, a man named Frank Haven Hall displayed his very own Braille printer to visitors at the fair, and a young girl named Helen Keller was walking past his display when her escort pulled her over to the printer. When Miss Keller understood what was before her, she hugged and kissed Mr. Hall and left him with tears of joy. But yet again, Burnham had another magical attraction for the visitors: the Ferris wheel. This exciting new ride gave the fair more than just attractions. False stories of a dog jumping from the top car, a couple being married on the top of the wheel, and even someone bending the cage's bars to leave the ride began to spew from every direction. And there was no such thing as bad publicity. Despite everyone being terrified of the ride, it proved to be an enormous source of income for the fair, and proved to be even more profitable than the Eiffel Tower. Mr. Burnham made one thing very clear through his fair: America was being rediscovered. Following the fair, Chicago became the home to the City Beautiful movement, which was an idea to preserve the cleanliness of cities. This idea was revolutionary, as cities were currently disgusting and repulsive, as they were filled with garbage, sewage backup, and even horse feces. This prompted citizens to take pride in the sanitation of public places and the cleanliness of their cities. Chicago was named the White City for its lights and bright displays, but soon it became known for its cleanliness and its sanitation. Chicago was taking a step into the field of sanitation. Forgetting all of the attractions and extravagant displays, the fair was really nothing more than an elaborate social ground. People from all over the world met with one another for business or recreation in the fair. Dignitary Archduke Ferdinand was seen heartily enjoying himself numerous times at the fair. Future presidents Woodrow Wilson and Theodore Roosevelt attended the park, and Roosevelt even had lunch with Burnham. Geniuses like Nikola Tesla and Thomas Edison enjoyed their stay at the fair as well. Mark Twain was said to have made the trip, but unfortunately fell ill upon entering Chicago. Among all of these famous people were the ordinary citizens simply talking with people from every corner of the globe and encountering all sorts of culture and people. Through exchanges, encounters, and explorations, Daniel Burnham proved to the world that America was more than capable of handling its own. But why did Burnham do this? Burnham was a selfless man that cared little about the money in his pockets, nor did he strive to make his name known in the world. So what sparked the dedication that he so firmly grasped? Christopher Columbus. 400 years earlier, America was being discovered for the first time, and to honor this great achievement, Burnham granted the world the ability to rediscover it one final time. Burnham gave the world one final trip into his magical, exciting, revolutionary White City.